Good morning. It is Saturday morning this time around. Welcome to my man cave party deck. I thought I'd fire up this morning. I didn't get a chance to do this Thursday or Friday this week, so here it is Saturday, and I wanted to get a little Facebook live stream going before the day got too deep. And today I want to talk about temperature controllers. So there's a lot of things to cover about temperature control systems, and I want to talk about a few. I want to try to get going here on the PC with us where I can see what's going on and try to entertain some comments. Tanya's going to start helping me with this, but she's unavailable today, and I'm gonna have a partner here helping me do this. So let me get going on the live broadcast on my PC here where I can see what's going on at the same time. I think that's going to work. And like I said, we're going to talk today about temperature controllers. There's a lot of temperature control options for your grills and smokers out there on the market. And in the beginning, I was kind of hesitant to promote temperature control systems. And the reason for that being is they're expensive. In a lot of cases, the temperature control systems that you're looking at cost more than the grill you're hooking it to. But in another lot of cases, that's not the case. You know, it depends on what kind of grill you've got. But temperature control systems give you, I think the biggest advantage I see people commenting about why they want a temperature control system is so they can put it on their grill or smoker and let it run unattended overnight, you know, with no fear of the grill going out of control and losing a cook because of it, which is a pretty solid reason. You know, if your grill, some grills are more capable of running like that unattended than others, so a temperature control system can be helpful. The Kamado grills that I use run fairly steadily. I've run all of mine overnight without the help of any controller on multiple occasions without any problems. I don't think I've ever run into a problem on an overnight cook. There are some tricks to that, obviously, and the biggest one is making sure your Kamado grill is stable before you, or not just a Kamado grill, but any grill, making sure it's stable before you walk away from it for any length of time. And stability is where the problems come in there. People leave their grill unattended before it reaches that stability. And even on a Kamado grill, it takes 2 to 3 hours for that stability to come in. If you can't call it stable after it's been sitting at the same temperature for 20 or 30 minutes right after you fired it up. That's that temperature is going to change. So, but back to the point here. These things do give you temperature stability throughout the entire length of your cook. You don't have to worry about it. The only time you would ever have a problem is if you ran out of fuel, or if you encountered an extreme change in the weather, like a extreme windy condition. Sometimes rain can play with them, but not very often. But like I said initially, I was against these things. I won't say I was against them. I'll say that I wouldn't really promote the idea of using one because they do two things. Number one, they empty your wallet pretty quickly. Number two, they make you lazy in learning how to run your grill. A lot of people will go ahead and just buy the controller right when they buy their grill, and they never take the time to learn to do that, which is your choice. Obviously, it's not a requirement, but being in control of your grill makes you a better cook all the way around. It makes you be able to operate in any conditions. You know, you won't be dependent on a multi-$100 piece of equipment to run your grill. You'll be able to do it yourself. That being said, you know, I have changed my mind in the last probably year about temperature controllers and their usefulness. I've come across some situations where I love using the temperature controller, and the biggest one that I like is when I'm first firing my grill up. I can, if I've got prep work to do, I always fire up my grill early. I like to light my grill no less than an hour before I plan to cook. That gives me a lot of advantages. It gets the grill hot, it gets the charcoal ready to go. It eliminates the problem of any immature smoke that I might be dealing with. But having the temperature controller do that for me allows me to, do my prep and not have to go back and forth to the grill to tweak vents to end up at the set temperature where I want to be. An average cook I might want to run the grill at 350 degrees or 400 degrees in the dome, and I can do that very quickly and easily by lighting up my charcoal, engage the temperature controller, and set the top vent wherever it needs to be set for that particular temperature range, and just let the controller do the work. I don't have to come back and forth to the grill. It saves me time. It allows me to get my prep work done, and by the time I have my prep work done, the grill's up to temp. So for me, that's a big time saver. That's the other thing that is kind of one of the situations where I talk about time saving. I'm a little different than maybe the average person when it comes to saving time. I like to dedicate time to working with the grills, but I don't mind tending a grill. I don't mind sitting around. I don't need to go to the grocery store. I don't need to go pick up kids from soccer. I don't need to do a whole bunch of other things while I've got food going. When I'm cooking, that's my priority. And I know everybody can't have it that way, but the temperature controllers give you the ability to let your grills work in the background. I don't have a lot of questions coming in this morning. I don't have anybody. Like I said, I'm trying to learn some of this technology with this live streaming, so I'm watching what's going on. But if you have any questions about temperature controllers or how they use them or how they get used, feel free to post it here. And if I can't catch you during the stream here, I'll come back after the fact and answer those questions. There are a lot of temperature control options to choose from. There are some very basic ones and there are some very advanced ones. The most basic temperature controller does nothing but that. It controls the temperature of your grill, and there's several of these out there that can be had for, I'm thinking they're in the $125 to $150 range, and all it is a fan that attaches to the air intake on your grill, and there's a temperature probe connected to that that runs up and connects to the grate of the grill or wherever you want to connect it, and it uses a computer to sense the temperature in the grill, and it adjusts the fan as needed. Those work great. They're fantastic, and they're inexpensive, and bang for the buck. That's the best thing. I think Barbecue Guru makes one called the Party Q. There's another one out there called the Pitmaster IQ. I haven't done any research prior to this broadcast to see what else is on the market. Those are two I know about because I own a Party Q. That was one of the early ones that I had, and it works great. It was actually battery powered as well, so you didn't have to run a extension cord out to your grill. You could connect it on the battery, and the battery, it used 4 AA's if I remember correctly, and it I could do 2 12 to 14 hour cooks on a set of batteries with the Party Q, and it worked great. It controlled my grill, allowed me to get away from it. In today's world, that thing's not very popular because there's a lot of technology that's come along since then that make people not as interested in that type of controller. But that type of controller is still perfectly functional, perfectly valid. As times roll by, we get some new feature sets. We get temperature controllers that will monitor your meat temperature as well. The same company, Barbecue Guru, has another controller that I've had for a really long time. It was actually the first controller I bought. It's called the DigiQ2DX, and I think the DigiQ2DX has been replaced by a more current model, but it would monitor meat temperature and pit temperature, and it had some alarms on it for pit temperature, high, low, meat temperature, high, and various things like that. It was a little more expensive. I think I had nearly $300 in that one by the time I got the controller and the fan if I remember correctly. It was not cheap. It was almost as expensive as the smoker I was running it on. I was running it on a 14-inch, or I'm sorry, an 18-inch Weber Smoky Mountain, and that smoker was only $2.99, and there the controller I had was almost that much with it. So I doubled the price of my smoker just by adding a controller like that. But it gave me the ability, and at the time, the peace of mind to walk away from that smoker and let it go overnight. But once again, now that controller is kind of obsoleted by a lot of options that are out here that have even more functionality. Today, everybody wants to be able to have that level of functionality with multiple pit probes, and they want to be able to control it via Wi-Fi. So Barbecue Guru, I apologize for this. I should have looked at this a little more closely. Barbecue Guru has a Wi-Fi option, and they had a Wi-Fi option at the time also called the CyberQ. I don't know where that product falls in the market right now, but it's still out there. It's got Wi-Fi control, but there's a lot of other product out there that has Wi-Fi control also, like the Flame Boss and the Fireboard are the two top ones that come to my mind. They give you control through Wi-Fi or through a PC web browser, and there's another differentiator here between some of the newer ones. There are a couple of newer ones in the market, like Kamado Joe's iCommand and like the Flame Boss 400, that give you pit monitoring, pit control, and meat temperature monitoring through Wi-Fi, but they require a smart device. You either need a phone or an iPad or some other smart device to interact with that. The Fireboard is also that way. The Fireboard is one of the top of the line ones, but it requires a smart device to control it, or a PC. You can actually control the Fireboard through a web browser connection also, but you can't control these devices directly from the device itself. And some of those are a little cheaper, like the iCommand's a little cheaper, the Flame Boss 400 is a little cheaper, and they don't have onboard control, and that's one of the reasons they're able to be a little bit less expensive. Flame Boss also has a unit. They have several units with onboard control. I don't know what they still have on the market. I have a Flame Boss 200, which has its own controller box where you can control the settings on your controller from the device itself, or actually the 200 is only through the device itself. You can't control it through Wi-Fi, but you can control it through a web browser connection, which is a little different. It doesn't have a smart device control unless that's been updated since I originally got it. Flame Boss is up to their 500 model, and I think the 500 model works all those situations all the way around. The Fireboard is probably the most capable of all these devices in terms of geek factors, what I like to call it. It's got 6 ports on it, so you can monitor pit temperature and 5 cuts of meat, if I'm not mistaken, and it will also control the pit temperature if you buy the right options to go along with it. It's extremely expensive if it's fully dressed out. It's up over $400 for the whole system the way it needs to be. They've got a basic unit for $189 that's just for monitoring. It's the controller and an ambient probe and 1 meat probe, or maybe 1 or 2 meat probes. It's $189. Their Extreme Starter Kit comes with the base unit and 6 probes, and it's $249, that's where I started out. But since then, they've upgraded that one to where you can buy a fan and a fan controller cable, or you can buy just their fan controller cable and hook anybody else's fan up to it. The cable's an optional buy, but it's a really nice setup, and it does everything you'd ever want it to do. It's apps, it's got great monitoring, but it gives you all that functionality. But like I said, fully dressed out with the Fireboard, you're up to about, I think if I added it up correctly, about $425 to get that one to do the full line of things that it does. So the Fireboard, like I said, is really super nice. So let me see what kind of questions we've got in here. Sean Francis says, my eye command is saying 260, but my dome temp is saying 200. That's something I definitely want to talk about, because that's the biggest problem you run into when you buy one of these temperature controllers. The temperature controllers are making you stupid. Don't take that the wrong way, but they are. You've been cooking, prior to having a temperature controller, you've been cooking to your dome temperature the whole time. And I do the same thing. If my controller says one thing and my dome temperature says another, I go by what my dome temperature says, because that's where I'm used to cooking. I've cooked everything to this point by dome temperature, and everything works great. So if I want to cook at a temperature of 350 degrees or whatever, if my dome temperature doesn't say 350, I'll adjust my computer to make it say 350. I'll either come up or down. I don't care what the ambient temp probe that's connected to the computer says, because I know that for consistency purposes, I want my dome temperature to read 350. What I do is I will clip my controller's ambient probe to the thermometer stem inside the grill, where it's as close to that as possible, and that typically keeps me close. So if you want those two things to read as closely together as possible, clip them together where they're reading from the same point. The reason you get different readings from that probe is based on where you put it. Typically, your dome thermometer in whatever kind of grill you're cooking with is up higher than your grate level. There's not a significant difference in temperature between those two levels, but there is a difference. You've also got a piece of meat sitting on the grill, and if you're using a Kamado or a round grill with a heat deflector in it, you've got hot air coming up from the side from underneath that heat deflector, so it's going to be hotter at the outside edge than it is closer to the middle. If you get your temperature probe too close to the meat, your meat's actually going to cool the probe. So there's a lot of problems associated with where you want to put that temperature controller or that temperature probe for reading your ambient temperature. If you put it down at grill grate level, it doesn't matter where you put it, you're going to get a bunch of oddball readings that don't match with your dome thermometer. So either clip it to the dome thermometer or adjust it to where it's reading the same thing as your dome thermometer reads, and you'll be fine. Don't sweat that. But that is a good question, and that's one I definitely wanted to address. Rob Craig asked for a recommended controller. I don't recommend any particular controller. I recommend the one you like. You need to go look at all of them. You need to look at CyberQ. You need to look at Barbecue Guru. You need to look at Flame Boss. You need to look at, those are the two big ones in the market right now. They're the most versatile. There's a lot of them out there, and once again, I apologize for not having made a list. I'm not trying to shun anybody. I'm not trying to promote anybody, but there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think the most versatile one of the bunch is the Fireboard, and it's also the most expensive one of the bunch. I don't like the Fireboard as much because I can't control it from the device. I like a controller where I have that option if I want it. So maybe the Flame Boss, for versatility purposes, it would be a good choice. Let's see. Darren Wilson has joined us today. He says, what do you think is the best, the fans-based system of the systems like the Smobot? I'm not sure I actually understand that question. What do you think is the best, the fans-based systems of the systems like... I'm going to skip that one and come back to it. Maybe Darren can clarify there what he's asking for me. Eric Henson asked what I use on the Joe. I use the eye command on the Kamado Joe simply because I let it live on the grill. It just stays on there all the time, and mine actually stays plugged in most of the time because mine is undercover. The eye command's water resistant, which I appreciate. It's not going to rain, and storms are not going to affect that, but that thing's working pretty good for me, and I just let it live on the grill. So that's what I'm currently using on my Kamado Joes. Jason Momborquette, I hope I pronounced that right. Do you prefer using your Joe with or without temperature controllers for your longer cooks? I've gotten to the point where I just leave it on there and use it for the entire cook. I don't have a preference. If I'm cooking during the daytime, I don't have a preference for sure. If I'm cooking overnight, I'll leave it on there. And like I said earlier, since I'm using that controller to start my grill, to get it going while I'm doing prep, and it's already on there, I just leave it on there and let it go. So yeah, technically this day and time I prefer using it all the time, and I'll leave it on there all the time. And Britton Carr says Flame Boss can be controlled from a web browser as well. Yeah, it can be done by the web browser or the smart device. The only one that can't be controlled that I'm aware of from the device itself from Flame Boss is the Flame Boss 400. Let's see here. There's some comments here about the Smobot. The Smobot is a different type of device. It won't work on everybody's grill because it won't fit on everybody's grill. And what it is, it's a device that sits on your exhaust port. I think the Smobot's designed originally to work on a Weber kettle, but it works on some other grills as well. And what it is a cap that sits on top of your exhaust port, and it's got a servo motor in it that adjusts the vent automatically based on the temperature. It's not controlling a fan. What it's doing is controlling the airflow through your grill by opening and closing the top vent as needed. I've seen the Smobot in use on the Weber kettles. Which means it would also work on the Weber Smoky Mountains. I've seen it used on a Char Grill or Acorn. I'm sure there's all kinds of fixes to make it work on a lot of different kinds of grills, but it's a little less smart device. It has a kind of a cool factor. I've never used one. I've never had my hands on one, so I cannot comment on how well the Smobot works. So yeah, there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of I'm sorry, not a lot of questions. There's a lot of options there. The Smobot is an interesting one for sure. I think it's a neat factor. My concern on something like the Smobot is whether or not that vent slider is going to get gummed up and gunked up with grease and fat residue from a long cook. I have never heard any complaints about it, but like I said, I've never used one. I don't know anybody personally that has the Smobot, I don't think. I'll have to ask around on that. So Hans is with us this morning from I think he's in Belgium. He's a great barbecue cook also, but don't let him fool you. He knows way more about cooking than about barbecue. This guy is like a culinary genius. He makes some beautiful food. Darren is asking preference between controlling with a fan from the bottom or with a kinetic motor that closes the open and top. Okay, so Darren's question is, do I prefer a fan at the bottom or the something like the Smobot at the top? And my answer is going to have to be the fan, because like I said, I've never used the Smobot, never had a chance to even try it. So I think the fan, I don't know, I might have to I might have to order a Smobot, because there is a problem that I've run into with fan systems before. I don't even want to discuss it here, but the Smobot might be an option for that. I don't know. I've never used it, so I can't really answer that question. I don't have that answer. I'll get online when I think about it, maybe this weekend, and order a Smobot and see if I can figure out how to make it work on the Kamado Joe. And if I can make it work on the Kamado Joe, I'll give it a try and see how that comes up. So I think that's probably going to wrap us up for right now. I think I've hit most of the questions I see here. I appreciate everybody stopping by, and this was an unannounced live stream. Like I said, I want to try to do this once a week, and until I figure out a way to make it on a steady schedule, it might happen on Thursday evening, it might happen on Friday evening, or it might happen on Saturday morning. So My wife is gone right now, but I've got to cut the grass. I've got grass cutting to do, and I've got some other stuff to do before I have to go work my job this evening. So thanks for coming by. Until next time, I'm John Setzler, coming to you from the Man Cave Party Deck.